What a year today has been, huh? What do you guys want to talk about? I don't think anything eventful happened today. I've spent the majority of this off season uh, talking about this potential trade in particular. And for the past 4 months, you guys have been commenting, throughout the live shows that we do, and plenty of discussions have been had about, oh man, the Steelers gonna trade for a receiver? Are they gonna trade for Brandon Aiyuk? Are they going to make this move? And I've been pretty consistent in saying, you know, if it was going to happen, I would expect it to happen at the draft. And then when it didn't happen at the draft, I had pretty much stuck to the thought of, okay, it's probably just not going to happen. Because from the 49ers standpoint, I still don't really see why they would want to. I don't think that they want to, but I feel like they're kind of trapped where Brandon Aiyuk can say, well, I'm just not going to play then. I'll miss games, which apparently he's rumored to be saying behind the scenes. If he does not get an extension that he wants, he just won't play. And so I know I've said all off season, pretty much since from the draft until now, that I don't think it's going to happen, and I've pretty much stuck to that I didn't think the Steelers were going to trade for Brandon Aiyuk. Today, I will say I think it's going to happen. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have sources on this. I'm not going to pretend that, I'm in the trenches here trying to dig up some stuff. I'm not. But there just feels like there's far too much smoke for there to be no fire with this thing, right? You're seeing the People's Insider Pretty Ricky really like going in on it. And again, you can kind of take that with a grain of salt if you will. I'll say this about that account. They've gotten a lot right in the past couple of days alone. I think he had put something out there about the Butker extension that just got done today. He had said something about Jordan Love and Tua Tagovailoa ahead of it happening. So again, just because he says it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but he's been right before. And now, like I said, I've maintained my thoughts on this throughout the offseason, where I said, it didn't happen at the draft. I don't think that it's going to happen if it didn't happen at the draft. I think it's going to happen. And that excites me. It also sets me up for ginormous disappointment. But as a pro wrestling fan, this is where the pro wrestling of professional football takes place in the offseason, where you're left wondering, okay, are these rumors actually going to take place? Am I being worked? Is this real? And here's the thing. I'm gonna let myself be worked. If it turns out that he doesn't get traded, oh well. Today was very fun for me because I spent all day thinking, oh man, they're actually going to do it. And if he does get traded, then great. This was a very chaotic day that ended with a great result. So, I'm going to let myself get worked a little bit. I'm going to keep refreshing Twitter. I got Shefty's notifications on, waiting for the tweet. I'm ready. But I know that there's been plenty of you guys who have, been in the YouTube comments, the Twitter comments, whatever it's been over the past few months saying, hey, Brandon Aiyuk, it's going to happen. And I've been I haven't been like rude about it, I don't think. But there was times where I was like, look, I'm not going to talk about Brandon Aiyuk anymore because I just don't think it's going to happen. And until something really looks like it's going to happen, then there's no reason to talk about it. Well, every time I've said that, Brandon Aiyuk does something to make me talk about him. And now we are to a point where I've gone from believing it's just not going to happen I went from believing that he's just going to play out this year with the 49ers and then test the free agent market next year to there's just too much smoke for this coming out now where I think it's going to happen. And you've got these guys on NFL Network, but I've got zero against these people, by the way. Nothing against any of the NFL Network guys, but they're going on NFL Network and being like, I wonder if Brandon Aiyuk was traded yet. Clowning people like the Ricky reporter Cam Marino was another guy who put it out there. And I'm just saying this, man, like, y'all better hope that they're wrong because you're on TV now clowning them for reporting something. And if it turns out to be right, then that kind of makes you look goofy for A, clowning these people, and B, getting, beat to the punch. And that's completely beside the point, but that was just something that I saw that kind of annoyed me. So, will Brandon Aiyuk be a Steeler? Yesterday, I would have said no. Today, I'm guessing yes. And when these details are going to come out, I don't know. If they come out tonight, I would expect it, between the hours of 8 and 9 Eastern. Maybe it happens like in the dead of night because remember when Russell Wilson announced that he was going to be a Steeler, it was like literally at midnight the day free agency opened. So will it be something like that? I don't know. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've got, the inside info on this type of thing. I do not. I can only go off vibes. And, there's a lot of people on the 49ers side of things too that are saying, yeah, I think it's going to happen. Grant Cohn, my buddy Grant Cohn, he's been, today to say, yeah, it looks like it's going to be the Steelers. He's pretty confident that it's going to happen. Matt, I think it's Matt Mayoko. I might have pronounced his name wrong, from NBC Sports Bay Area, was writing about it, saying that he feels like a trade is the most likely scenario for Brandon Aiyuk. So, it's not just, faceless reports on Twitter. These are respected people that work in that market saying, yeah, I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to be traded. And my buddy Corey Canan, who covers the Cleveland Browns, said that he was told that Brandon Aiyuk said he would not sign an extension if he was traded to Cleveland. And so that only leaves two teams, really. And by the way, Brandon Aiyuk himself, when he was on the Pivot last month, said, I can see myself, if I'm not a Niner, I can see myself being a Washington Commander. I can see myself being a Pittsburgh Steeler. 49ers have already kind of said, we're not going to trade him to an NFC team. And Adam Schefter said today on Pat McAfee's show, is really, good thing to point out. He basically has like an unofficial no trade clause, right? Because if a team wants to trade for him, like in the Cleveland situation, the Browns said, okay, we'll trade for Brandon Aiyuk. He basically said, yeah, if you trade for me, I'm not staying there. So he's basically telling teams if he'll play for them, which basically gives him a ton of leverage, which, by the way, he's had in this entire thing. 49ers don't have leverage. Brandon Aiyuk kind of holds all the cards here. And again, the 49ers shouldn't have waited this long. They should have just paid him. They wouldn't be in the situation if they just paid him. Because then A.J. Brown got paid. Devontae Smith got paid. Jalen Waddle got paid. Justin Jefferson got paid. And so now they're kind of having to lay in this bed that they made. And so I see all you guys commenting. I will get to as many of them as possible. I figured that this is going to be kind of a more popular comment show. So I see it. I'm not ignoring you. There's just a bunch of them. So bear with me. So like I said, yesterday, if you would have asked me, hey, is Brandon Aiyuk going to be a Steeler? I would have said probably not. Today, if you ask me, hey, do you think Brandon Aiyuk is going to be a Steeler? I think so. I think it's going to happen. Now, the next part of this, we'll save the next part of this after the comments. I know that you guys love that part of it. We'll see. Great day for Aiyuk truthers. Omar's Burner has been very dedicated to this for the past 4 months, so tip my cap to you. It's not going to see those new reports came out. There weren't any reports that said he's not going to the Steelers. All these new reports coming out have said nothing has been finalized yet. the Aiyuk truthers who were called trolls. So like I know there's a ton of you guys in here right now. Half, some of you saying, don't believe it. Some of you are saying believe it. All of it, I get it. This is a very I figured this would be a very comment heavy show. So the next part of this though is, if there is a trade, what's the compensation, right? My guess is two things. One, James Daniels could be part of it because he's on the last year of his deal. Jerry Dulac talked about this the other day where, there's a chance that Troy Fautanu would be slotted in at guard if need be, at least to start. And so if the Steelers were to trade James Daniels as part of a package for Brandon Aiyuk, there's a decent chance that they slide in Fautanu at guard and play him next to Broderick Jones on the right side, and for some ungodly reason, keep Dan Moore in at left tackle. So that's a possibility. And again, James Daniels is on the last year of his deal. Pittsburgh pretty much told him, yeah, we're not going to pursue a long-term extension with you. So it's very possible they just ship him out, similar to what they did with Kevin Dotson last year, right? Although Kevin Dotson was going to be a backup. It's a little bit different, apples to oranges, but James Daniels could be part of that deal because the 49ers' right side of their offensive line isn't very good. And that was pretty evident, especially in the Super Bowl last year. So James Daniels could be, the fundamental piece for a trade with, a draft pick or two. If it's James Daniels, a third and a fourth, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there. Or maybe if there isn't any sort of like player compensation, my thought process went to this: 2 second-round picks as like the base for it. I'm sure there will be additional picks with it, some day 3 picks thrown in as well. But with one of the 2025 second-round pick being a conditional one. So if Brandon Aiyuk has, X amount of catches, yards, touchdowns, or maybe the condition is if the Steelers win a playoff game, then it becomes a first-round pick. Something like that, where it has the potential to become a first-round pick, but they're not going to just give up the first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk straight up. It'll be, we'll give you the first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk, and if he gives us this amount of production, or if we get this far in the playoffs. So I think that if there's no player thrown in, or at least not like a big-name player, 2 second-round picks, one of them being a conditional first, maybe something that could be worked out in that regard. Again, this is just me spitballing ideas. Because if the Steelers weren't willing to give up a first-round pick straight up before, there's a chance that, there could be some meeting in the middle there where it's like, okay, it's not, straight up a first-round pick, but it could become one. So that is kind of where my head's at in terms of what the compensation would be if there's a trade. Kevin, I'd give the 49ers a second-round pick, James Daniels and Vandy. You know what? I would do that. That's fine with me. If that's all it took to get Brandon Aiyuk. Because, again, look, James Daniels isn't going to be there next year anyway, right? And it's not ideal to have Fautanu start at guard if you drafted him to be a tackle. But, there's worse things that you could do. I mean, they drafted Broderick Jones to be a left tackle, and it looks like he's going to be the right tackle again because they've completely mismanaged that. And there's a decent chance that with that second-round pick next year, if you were to keep it, you were probably going to take a receiver anyway again. So you may as well trade it for Brandon Aiyuk along with Van Jefferson, who, all due respect to Van Jefferson, he ain't Brandon Aiyuk. I don't care how good he's looked in camp. He's not Brandon Aiyuk. So, if that's what happens, and then your offense looks like, Russell Wilson / Justin Fields, with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren in the backfield, an offensive line of, my guess would be from left to right, Dan Moore, Isaac Samalo, Zach Frazier, Troy Fatanu, and Broderick Jones. And then your receivers, Aiyuk, Pickens, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson. I mean, you could do worse than that, bud. You could certainly do worse than that. And the Steelers are going to have a boatload of cap space next year, so they can more than afford to pay Aiyuk. And if Wilson and Fields both don't work out, you guys, most of you know where I'm going with this. I'm not going to live in it. I'm not going to, spend a lot of time on it, but I will say, if they don't work out, the Steelers should not go back to the well of the draft because they need to focus on winning now. There's going to be a perfectly good Dak Prescott that they could go pursue next year too. So there's a lot that could happen over the next year, but we'll focus on today. We'll focus on now with Aiyuk. But if that's what your offense looks like this year, I mean, that's a solid offensive line. Yes, it's not where you're going to have Fatanu long term if that's the trade. But if you can work him into the lineup in some way, shape, or form, he's talked about it himself saying, I can play anywhere on the offensive line. I'm fluent at every position. I can I can play wherever. Then cool. And if eventually you want to transition him to being a right tackle, then you can still do that. You drafted Mason McCormick as well in this draft. If you want to work him into being a potential starter next year, then you move Fatanu to the outside and move McCormick into the starting role at right guard. Like starting Troy Fatanu at guard certainly wouldn't be the end of the world. Is he going to be as good as James Daniels off the bat? Probably not, because James Daniels is a really good guard. But again, if the Steelers have already made it known, which they have, they're not going to extend James Daniels. This is more than likely going to be his final year in Pittsburgh. Trade him now and get something for him. I can get on board with that. And again, all due respect to Van Jefferson, he's looked good this camp. He ain't Brandon Aiyuk. And if that's all it took to get Brandon Aiyuk, then yeah, sign me up. If we do trade for Brandon Aiyuk, would you think that means the Steelers are all in on Fields? I mean, not necessarily. I don't think that I think they love Fields, but I think that Russ is still going to start the season. However, I will say this. I think Fields has looked good enough where the leash for Russ has gotten shorter. So if the offense doesn't look like solid in the first 2 to 4 weeks, people are going to be like, all right, look, we saw what Fields can do. Let's put him in. Rather than, if Fields is having an okay camp, Russ could probably drag that out to the bye week, right? So, no, I don't think that this has much. Them trading for Brandon Aiyuk, I don't think that signifies that they're all in on Fields. I don't think it signifies that they aren't. But I think it's just, hey, if we can get good players, let's get good players, right? And by the way, getting as many playmakers for these quarterbacks is the best thing you can do. Because if both of them don't play well, they have the built-in excuse of saying, well, we didn't have anybody to throw to. I was throwing to George Pickens, and that's my only target. You had me thrown to Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins. What'd you expect? Now, though, both of these quarterbacks will have zero excuses. Because the offensive line is going to be better. They have 2 good running backs, 2 top 32 receivers in the NFL, a good tight end. There's zero excuse, and you'll find out very quickly if any of these quarterbacks are worth your time long term. So yeah, like Brandon Aiyuk's a great player, but he also helps you figure out what the hell you have at quarterback. He's going to help you figure out what you have a hell of a lot quicker than Scotty Miller. I love Scotty Miller. He's not Brandon Aiyuk. So, I mean, if you're the Steelers, you can say, all right, we got 2 number 1 capable receivers on the offense. Our offensive line's better. Got a better offensive coordinator, a good tight end, 2 good running backs. One of these guys better show us something, because if they don't, then we know it's not us. We know that we did all that we could do. We put a good offense and a good defense around them. If they stink, it's because they stink. It's not because anything we did. So I think it helps them in the short term and the long term, because they can figure out if Wilson or Fields are worth their time long term. Do you agree, Jared? Trent Williams holding out caught them by surprise and changed tune on trade. I haven't seen anything about a Trent Williams holdout. Have I just missed that today? Or was this like dating back to a while? Because I haven't seen, maybe I've just been paying too much attention to the Aiyuk stuff. I haven't seen anything about a Trent Williams holdout. Let me pull up the old Twitter. Okay. I mean, I'm looking. I don't see that there's. I haven't seen anything about Trent Williams holding out. I know he needs a new deal, but I haven't seen anything about him holding out. But if he is, then yeah, I'm sure that has something to do with it. The only thing with Trent Williams is that yes, he's very good, still one of the 3 best tackles in the league, but he's also going to be 36. And that's something that the 49ers should, I'm sure that they are having the conversations about, how long of an extension they would give him and whatnot. But there's some 49ers fans that would say, yeah, Trent Williams is more crucial to what they do than Brandon Aiyuk is. And I probably wouldn't disagree with that too much, especially with how much they run the ball. So I think that Trent Williams wanting, that an extension, yeah, that would throw a wrench into things when you're trying to do things with Brandon Aiyuk, because then you've got to kind of make a choice. And by the way, this is always how it was going to end for the 49ers. They can't pay everybody. Can't do it. When you have that many good players, eventually some of them are going to have to leave. And by the way, in the next few years, you got to worry about Travarius Ward, Hafanga, Dre Greenlaw. I think in the next couple of years, you got to worry about paying Bosa again. I could be wrong on that. Whenever Fred Warner's deal is up. Like, they're going to have to, but Brock Purdy. Like, they have a lot of guys that they're going to have to pay, and they can't pay them all. They already paid Debo. Got to figure out how to pay Trent Williams. You have to worry about Kittle. Like, they have so many great players, you can't keep them all long term, right? And so, yeah, if Trent Williams is more of the priority in terms of getting a new deal, then yeah, that would throw a wrench into things, right? Aiyuk to the Berg. Another one that's been pretty adamant about this. And I tip my cap to all those who have stayed the course and stayed strong in the Brandon Aiyuk stuff. Don't quote me on that. Again, this is just me speculating. I think he's going to be. I've got no sort of inside information on that. I'm not going to pretend I do. But, yeah, like I said, if you asked me yesterday, the answer would have been no. You're asking me today, my answer is yes. I think he's going to be. I keep refreshing Twitter to see what happens. Again, I got Shefty's notifications on. So this is keep looking. I'm waiting. Like, my goodness. And forgive me, I'm just kind of scrolling and hoping and waiting, waiting for something. My buddy Grant Cohn, who is the publisher of All 49ers, the SI home for the 49ers coverage, tweeted, "My best guess is the 49ers are done with Brandon Aiyuk and want to trade him. Aiyuk wants to go to Pittsburgh. The 49ers will trade Aiyuk to Pittsburgh." That's what he just tweeted. So, again, love Grant. One of the more, big names in terms of 49ers media. And again, eventually when there's all this smoke, there's too much smoke to not be any fire, right? And so now we're just kind of playing a waiting game and seeing what happens. I hope it happens tonight so I can sleep. If it does happen tonight, I'm probably going to be too antsy to sleep anyway. I'll also say this. If they do get Aiyuk, that doesn't automatically make them Super Bowl contenders. I hate to pour some rain on this parade, but until we know what they have at quarterback, we're not going to know how far they can go, right? I'm not trying to be the resident downer. I'm just trying to be the resident realist. It makes them better for sure. Like I pointed out, it helps them figure out what they have at quarterback. And if Wilson and or Fields play well, then that's great. Then you might be able to go far in the playoffs. But if both these quarterbacks stink, then okay, you've got a great core, and then you can worry about finding a quarterback in 2025. But just getting Aiyuk, that doesn't make them automatic like Super Bowl contenders. It definitely makes them better. But until we know what they are at quarterback, man, like, I don't want to say it means nothing because it doesn't mean nothing. Because long-term, it definitely makes you better and will make a quarterback want to go there. It'll make someone like a Dak Prescott look at Pittsburgh and be like, oh, I could go to Pittsburgh and win. So I'm not saying it will mean nothing because obviously it will mean something. It'll make their roster a lot better. He's a great player. But for this year alone, like if their quarterbacks aren't good, then that puts a hard ceiling on how far they can go. So again, not trying to be a downer, just trying to be a little bit of a realist here. We get Aiyuk. What do you think is our weakest position group? It depends on what they trade. I mean, if James Daniels is part of the trade package, then there's going to be question marks about what they do at guard. Again, I think that they would just probably start Fatanu there. I think Fatanu is going to be good, but even then, I mean, it's two rookies on the interior that you're starting. That's still a question. There's no guarantee that Frazier and Fatanu will both be good. So that would be your biggest question at that point. Because I'm confident in their secondary, which is something I couldn't say last year. I'm confident in Joey Porter and Dante Jackson as the starters. I'm confident as Beanie Bishop as the starting nickel. And when Cam Sutton gets back, confident in the safeties. Sean Elliott's an upgrade over DeMonte Casey as a starter, opposite of Minka Fitzpatrick. Confident in the linebackers. Confident in the edge rushers. I guess you could say like interior defensive line, but you got Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton still. Larry Ogunjobi's there as well. You drafted Logan Lee. You brought in Dean Lowry. Like they've got a solid group. I get, if they do trade for Aiyuk, the biggest question marks will be quarterback and then the interior of the offensive line. Quarterback would still be their biggest question. Until we see it on the field in the regular season against, actual teams, even if we do see it in the preseason, Steelers fans know as well as anybody at this point, preseason, doesn't matter how good you look. Do it in September. The offense looked awesome last preseason. The starters had, 5 drives and scored 5 touchdowns? It took them 4 games to score 5 touchdowns last year. So, respectfully, even I don't care how good they look in the preseason, I'm still going to have my trepidations. Simply because of what happened last year. So if they get Aiyuk, I mean, quarterback's still probably the biggest question mark. And then interior of the offensive line, and then I guess defensive interior. But even then, defensive line's good. Offensive line will be better than what it was last year, regardless of who they put up there. It just comes down to, okay, how good are these quarterbacks going to be? Hopefully they're very good. Hope we can keep Daniels so consistent and fits Smith's system perfectly. Even if they do keep Daniels for this year, he's not going to be there next year, which is why I could understand trading him. They're not going to sign him to a long-term deal. If they were, they would have done it already. He's going to be a free agent next year and sign elsewhere. So I can understand why he would be traded because the Steelers aren't going to keep him around anyway. Come on, it's 7:22. Let's get some confirmation on this. That would be a great way to end the show. Is getting it confirmed. I'm just looking. Pretty Ricky is really just going in. Forgive me as I scroll. I'm not trying to ignore all of you. I'm just trying to see what everybody's saying. What is this? Everybody's just freaking out about this. And look, understandably so, right? I mean, this is a big deal that's been talked about for a long time. 4 months. Matters quarterback is better than what they've had recently and still won, so I believe they'll be just fine. And that's fair, and I get that. But, saying it's better than what they've had recently, that's like saying that, eating a food that you don't like is better than eating a shit sandwich. Like, yeah, it's better, but you still don't like it, right? Like Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky saying that you have quarterbacks that are better than those two now, I mean, that's not exactly a high bar. So, yeah, they won 10 games last year somehow by the grace of whatever higher power you believe in. But they weren't Super Bowl threats. It doesn't matter that they got into the playoffs. Everybody and their mother knew that when they went up to Buffalo, they were going to get their asses kicked. And they did. So if you don't have the quarterback, you're like, yeah, you might be able to sneak into the playoffs. The Steelers are living proof of that. You can get into the playoffs with a bad quarterback. You can't win in the playoffs with bad quarterback play. You can't get to the Super Bowl in today's league without bad quarterback play. So, yeah, they might be able to, get through the regular season, win 10 games again, and maybe sneak into the playoffs if they have subpar quarterback play again, but they won't be able to go far. Daniels is their right guard. He's their right guard. One of the better ones in the league. Kind of underrated. I'm a big James Daniels guy. Again, he's going to be a free agent after this year. They made it pretty known they're not going to re-sign him. And the 49ers need help on that right side of the offensive line. So that kind of makes sense. Aiyuk is not going to be a Steelers and Niners fan, but I could be wrong. This comment pretty much summarizes the day. He's not going to be a Steeler. Yeah, I might be wrong. That's pretty much this day in a nutshell. He's not going. Hey, fuck, he might. I don't know. Oh, I love that. That's funny. That made me laugh. Is it going to happen tonight, or are they just going to wait? I don't know, man. I'm as in the dark on this as all of you are. I'm just a dude who talks about football and wants to know what the hell's happening. Again, I'm not going to pretend I have any sort of inside sources on this. I do not. All I can say is if I had to guess yesterday, if you asked me yesterday, will Brandon Aiyuk be a Steeler? My answer would have been no. If you're asking me today, I'm guessing yes. James Daniels is our right guard who's due a crazy deal next year. Yes, he is, and he will get a crazy deal. His insiders are backpedaling, losing to the yeah, no, I see Pretty Ricky. He's like already taking a preemptive victory lap. So again, my hopes are high. I'm afraid to play NCAA right now. Sorry, it's not NCAA. I'm afraid to play college football right now. I'm in an online dynasty with my friends. They keep blowing up my phone saying, hey, play your game. I'm like, look, man, I got to stay on top of this. So after I'm done this, I got to, take care of college football matters. So, yeah, this is this is why I hate having Schefter's notifications on, because he just tweeted and I got the notification, but it's about fucking Harrison Butker and his new deal. Which, by the way, I mean, cool for Harrison Butker. He's now the highest paid kicker in NFL history. But there's more things. Like, respectfully, Adam, there are more important things to talk about right now, bud. I need to... goodness gracious. The heart is beating. I saw Kevin Adams tweet that he was pacing around his house today. He's like, when is this sickness going to end? I'm pacing around my house, trusting a dog avatar with my life about Steelers news. And, the day I stop caring this much, just pull the plug. It's not going to be worth it. I'm lucky enough to make my living in talking about football. And the day I don't give a shit about it, what's the point, By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. It would make my little heart very happy. Steelers content, NFL content throughout the year. Black and Gold Breakdown, the Pump Fake, my national NFL podcast, streamed here. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. So a little shameless plug there. If you're not already subscribed on YouTube, please do that. That would make me very, very happy. Read all my work on the sporting news. Read all my Steelers coverage up behind the steel curtain. I don't think I'm leaving out anything. But yeah, if you're not already subscribed, please do that. I'm going to try to get to all of these people that are in here. Maybe one season rental. I'm not buying it. I don't know if you're talking about the James Daniels idea to the 49ers or the Brandon Aiyuk idea to the Steelers. Here's the thing about, the Steelers with Aiyuk. If they trade for him, it's not a one-season rental. If they trade for him, it's Aiyuk knowing in advance that the Steelers have an extension on the table with money that he likes, because he's got basically an unofficial no-trade clause right now. That's why he said he ain't going to Cleveland. He already said, I'm not going to fucking Cleveland. So if the Steelers trade for Aiyuk, there is an extension that will be in place shortly after. And they can afford to do it. Any chance Troy Fautano or Mason McCormick will be involved in the trade? Maybe. Mason McCormick's an interesting one. Like, he's not going to be he's not going to be a starter this year, but really raw, talented guy. During OTAs, they worked him on the right and left side of the offensive line. Athletic in space. I love Mason McCormick. Every time I've talked to him, he's been a really sweet dude. Really just, always open with his time throughout the offseason when I wanted to talk to him during after practices. So I have a soft spot for Mason McCormick. I would be a little bit sad to see him go. But, from a for player perspective, if the 49ers are like, okay, we want Mason McCormick, I'd be, okay, you could have Mason McCormick. But yeah, I would be sad to see him go if he does get traded from a personal level, just because I think that he'll end up being a really good offensive lineman, and he's been very nice to me. So I wish him nothing but the best if he is part of the deal. But again, we just got to kind of wait for the compensation to come out, if and when it does come out, assuming that the trade is going to happen. How successful do you think this offense will be under Art Smith this year? I mean, if they're like the ninth, I shouldn't even say that. If they're like the, 16th best offense in football, that's a great start. Because last year they were, like the 27th. I have to go and look at their rating in terms of EPA. But one thing that they were already good at last year was running the ball. I think they finished last year 8th in the league in EPA per rush. And Arthur Smith is really good at designing run schemes. And from 2019 to 2020, the Titans were second in the NFL in success rate on offense and EPA on offense, behind only the Chiefs. So, yeah, Art knows what he's doing. I don't think he's a very good head coach, but offensive coordinator, he knows what he's doing. And I think that this type of personnel is something that he can really do stuff with. Similar to what he had in Tennessee, where it's going to be, pounding the rock, with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, similar to what he did with Derrick Henry in Tennessee. It's going to be a lot of play action passing, similar to what he did in Tennessee. And frankly, revitalizing the career of a veteran quarterback like he did in Tennessee. Remember, Ryan Tannehill was left for dead. He got traded to the Titans from the Dolphins. Everybody thought, okay, well, there goes Ryan Tannehill's career as a starter. He isn't going to be anything special. And then Arthur Smith helped take Ryan Tannehill and the Titans to an AFC championship game. So I've got faith in Art. And it seems like all the guys on offense do too. I see a lot of people. Maybe it's Mason McCormick. Maybe. If it happens, I'm going to say 3 picks for Brandon Aiyuk. Okay. I'm fine with that. And by the way, this goes back, 4 months or so ago, before the 2024 draft, when I said, look, if they want a first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk, give it to them. And everybody was all up in arms. Oh, Jerry, you can't trade a first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. Why? So many people get so focused on draft picks. It drives me up a freaking wall. It's the mystery box on Family Guy thing. It's like, oh, man, Brandon Aiyuk, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be Brandon Aiyuk. Like, dude, they just traded for Brandon Aiyuk. If they trade a 2025 first for Brandon Aiyuk, that's fine, because you know what they're going to do with that pick. If they don't get Brandon Aiyuk, they're going to probably take a receiver anyway. So you might as well trade for a receiver that is good and is good, than take a flyer on a guy that there's no guarantee is going to be good, right? So I don't have – if the deal involves a first-round pick, I'm cool with it. For the reasons I just pointed out about the receiver. And 2, if the quarterbacks don't work out, they can't go back to the well of a first-round quarterback again, because this defense is getting too old to do that. They can't afford to have another punt year we're like, all right, we're going to have to develop this quarterback for all of 2025. Probably not going to have a deep playoff run this year. Sorry, boys. Sorry, TJ. Sorry, Minka. Sorry, Cam. Cam might not be there next year, but still, TJ Watt's going to be 30. Minka Fitzpatrick's not getting any younger. You got Patrick Queen for 3 years. Like, go and get a veteran quarterback next year if these two don't work out. So that's why I'm not worried about giving up a 1. Scrolling through all of these. They're waiting on compensation and who's the player or players going to San Francisco. Again, no trade has been made official yet, just heavily speculated. In terms of the players going to the 49ers, I have no idea. Even if there will be any players going to the 49ers, it could just all be draft compensation. But if I'm speculating, James Daniels or Mason McCormick would probably be the two near the top of my list. James Daniels is probably the top on my list. If they were to send a receiver as well in return, or to send a receiver in return as part of the deal, maybe it's Van Jefferson. I think it would probably be Calvin Austin. Just my guess. Those are the only two that really garner any trade interest that they would say. I mean, they're not going to trade Pickens because that would just leave them exactly where they are right now, needing another receiver. Oh, this is interesting. Rumor I saw Alex Highsmith, Dan Moore, and a 6 for Brandon Aiyuk. I don't know where you saw that. I would do it. Now, the only problem with Highsmith is that would be a decent amount of dead cap because he just signed an extension last year. So I don't think they're going to trade Highsmith. I could be wrong. I just don't think they're going to. Logistically, it could still make sense from a roster perspective because they have Nick Herbig right there. And I think that he can be a legit like starting edge rusher. Not like a edge rusher 1, not yet at least. But I think that if you had him opposite of TJ Watt, he could still be extremely productive. But from a money standpoint, I don't know if it would make sense for the Steelers this year just because that would be a decent amount of dead cap that they would have to eat. But yeah, Dan Moore and a 6, if that's part of the deal, bro, I will drive. I'm driving to the airport myself. I don't think that's what it would be, though. I feel like that's far too light. Now, by the way, I mean, if you put Alex Highsmith on the other side of Nick Bosa, I mean, that's a very good pass rushing duo. With Javon Hargrave in the middle of them, yeah, that would be very good. We'll see. I don't think that would be the deal that gets done, just because, like I said, Highsmith signed an extension last year. Let me pull up what his dead money would be, just because I'm curious. My phone's gonna die. I'm on 2%. Let's see if we can get this done. If somebody's watching this and can pull up Alex Highsmith's dead money, that would be just lovely because this phone is for sure gonna die here in a minute. Yeah, you know what? It's gonna die. I don't know what his dead money is off the top of my head. I probably should have charged my phone before this. That was rumored from the league and talked about on the 49ers channel. Maybe. Again, if they would trade Highsmith, they could still make sense of it roster-wise because Nick Herbig is ready to be a starter opposite of Watt. I fully believe that. But depending on how much dead money they'd have to eat, I think that's what would keep that from happening. So I'm pulling it up right now. Well, yeah, only 17 of it was fully guaranteed. So he signed a 4-year, $68 million extension, $17 million fully guaranteed, $16 million signing bonus. Okay, so we got like $33 million like upfront. This year, dead cap would be $21.5 million. So don't think he would be part of it. Hope as the situation causes our wide receiver core to strive to be better, that money could be used for our proven talents retention. Nah, I don't. Frankly, man, like no disrespect to you, I don't care about that. Like the wide receiver core, like hopefully they improve, but I don't care about bringing back Cam Hayward. He's a 36-year-old nose tackle. He's going to be a 36-year-old nose tackle. I don't care if they bring him back. Like, that should be very low on their to-do list. I got nothing against Cam. It's not going to break my heart if they don't bring him back. Outside of that, like, all of their core pieces are still going to be there. Like, James Daniels is the big one that's going to be off the books. He's not coming back. The rest of these guys, like Najee Harris is another one. He ain't coming back. But Minka's still going to be there. TJ's still going to be there. Patrick Queen's still going to be there. Peyton Wilson's still going to be there. I think Landon Roberts is going to be a free agent, but he's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to bring back if you want to. He's probably going to be the third inside linebacker next year, so it's not going to cost you a lot of money to bring him back. Still got Keanu Benton on a rookie deal. You have to get a couple more defensive lineman depth, but I think Dean Lowry's still going to be under contract next year. Larry Ogunjobi's probably not going to come back, but again, he's an older guy. Most of their most of their money being freed up is from a bunch of old dudes that aren't going to be back, and Najee Harris. So, not like all of their big name core guys are under contract through 2025. So I'm not worried about that personally. Herbig's a year away from being truly great. I agree. I think he rules. I hope that they make him a starter sooner than later. Like, especially if Highsmith doesn't like blow you away this year. I wouldn't be mad if they traded Highsmith next year and just made Herbig the starter. Now, that's a great problem to have when you have 3 quality edge rushers. But, like, if Highsmith doesn't, like, live up to the money that you're giving him, see if you can move him and then make Herbig the starter. That's a very far down the road, though. Would you rather trade Daniels or a first for Aiyuk? Just personal opinion. One helps now, the other helps in the future. I'm fine with either. If they trade James Daniels and it means they don't have to trade a first-round pick, that's fine. I guess that would be my preferred one because you still keep the first-round pick. But if they trade a first-round pick for him, I'm not going to be upset. Get Brandon Aiyuk would be huge. It'd be a big problem for the rest of the division, if not the AFC. Again, it comes down to the quarterback play for how big of a problem they would be. But yes, I would be very excited. But like I said, if you asked me yesterday, do I think that Brandon Aiyuk will be a Steeler? My answer would have been no. If you asked me right this second, do I think Brandon Aiyuk will be a Steeler? My answer is yes. There's far too much smoke for there to not be any fire. And it appears that a lot of these insiders like using language that sounds like, okay, yeah, the deal's done. We're just waiting for the compensation so we can put it out. So hopefully it's by the end of the night that we find out that Brandon Aiyuk is a Steeler. And I will be very, very, very happy, as will every Steelers fan be very happy. And then I'm going to pull up a clip of me on the Chase Thomas podcast back in like March and of February where I said that Brandon Aiyuk would be a Steeler. And I'm going to tweet it. And I'm going to look like a genius. Steelers are kicking down the doors this season, multiple playoff wins. It's high hopes. I have the same high hopes. I'm not going to bank on it. It's one of those things I got to see it to believe it. Until I see how good the quarterback play is, like, I'm not going to bank on that. I'm going to hope for it, and I'm going to hope that they're great. But I need to see how good the quarterbacks are. Going to have to trade a first rounder. And look, if they do, then that's fine. I will not be upset if they trade a first rounder. For the reasons I've already pointed out. A, you're probably going to use a first round pick on a receiver next year anyway if you don't trade for Aiyuk. And B, they can't use that. They should not use a first round pick on a quarterback next year if Fields and Wilson aren't the answer. They should go out and try to get Dak. That would be what I would do because TJ Watt's not getting younger. He's going to be 30. Minka Fitzpatrick's not getting younger. You've got a 3-year window of Patrick Queen. Signed a 3-year deal. Take advantage of it. Eventually, you're going to have to pay these other guys. Like, just give yourself a window where you can win, like be legit contenders and try to win now. Rather than develop a rookie quarterback and hope that he turns into CJ Stroud year 1, which is very, very, very unlikely. Like, the last thing I want to see the Steelers do is like take like Drew Aller. I'm a Penn State fan. Like Drew Aller, I don't want him to be a Steeler, though. Steelers getting Aiyuk for second and Calvin Austin. I don't know if that would get the job done. I mean, unless it's like the official compensation, and I haven't seen it yet. Again, phone is dying, so I'm going to stop being on it actually right now because I don't want it to die. But I think this is a I know everybody's going through some stuff. Hold on. Brovarian. Win what? I don't know what this is in reference to, Jeff. You'll have to refresh be a little bit more detail oriented there. Oh my goodness. So I think that this is probably a decent spot to wrap it up. A, because my phone's dying. B, we've been going at it for about an hour now. And if and when news breaks that the trade is official, we'll do another show following that. If it's tonight, then we'll do it tomorrow. But if news does break about it, then we'll see what time if it does happen tonight, then maybe I'll hop back on. But if it happens tomorrow, yeah, I'll be right back on to talk about it. If you're not already subscribed, again, I know that there's a lot of people in here right now. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. It's not just Steelers talk that I do. Got a lot of NFL content, my national NFL pod, the Pump Fake. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. A lot of fun stuff on there. You can read my written work at the Sporting News. So if you're not already subscribed, please do that. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. It feels like he's going to be a Steeler, and that is what I will part with. I think that Brandon Aiyuk will be a Steeler. I think that it's a matter now of when, not if, and it's a matter of just figuring out the compensation. But it does feel like he's going to be a Steeler. So, again, if you're not already subscribed, do that. If you want to follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL, that would be lovely. I'll see you guys on the internet soon. But take care. Take care of each other. Be safe. And we'll be back very soon to talk more Steelers, talk more NFL. Have a good night.